Greetings, my name is Mike Flory. I am the broker-owner of Monticello Property Management, and over the next few minutes I'm going to go over the residential lease agreement that we're going to sign with you for your new home. Starting on page 1, you're going to see the names of the financially responsible tenants at the top, and then Monticello Property Management as your landlord. And if we slide down to section 1, we're going to note all of the approved occupants for the home. So if there is other people that will be residing here, we need to have that indicated on the lease. You should know that going forward, any additional occupants being added to the residence need to be approved in writing by the landlord before those new occupants move in. And when we go to section 2, you're going to see the term of the agreement. In most cases, you're going to see a fixed term, usually 1 year, but the start date will be listed here and the end date. During that entire term, your rent will be fixed at the amount indicated in section 3. Rent is due on the first of the month. You have 3 calendar days to get the rent here before it is considered late. There's lots of options for you to pay your rent. Our preferred method is through the online portal, and we will be providing you instructions how to set up your online account and to make payment. You're going to note when you sign up to make an online payment that there's 2 options. You can pay by credit card or e-check. We recommend e-check because there is no fee for that payment. It comes directly out of your bank account on the date of your choosing. If you go with a credit card, there is a pretty substantial fee associated with that, so we don't advise that. If you're not comfortable paying online, we can accept personal check, money order, cashier's check, and that should be made payable to Monticello Property Management at our address listed here in section 3D. Make sure to mail that check several days before the first of the month. Credit for the rent payment is when we receive it, not when it is sent. So make sure to get that out on time. In section 4, you're going to see the security deposit amount. This security deposit, the key takeaway on that is it cannot be used as last month's rent. We'll discuss with you shortly how you get that money back, but the key thing for you to be aware of is that is a fee to ensure we get the apartment back or the residence back in the same condition that we're providing it to you. Let's move down to section 5. This is your move-in costs and monies that we have received from you. And we're going to indicate here the security deposit, which has already been received. And you're also going to see the rental amounts that need to be paid. At move-in, you need to pay a full month's rent. If there is a proration, it will be indicated here, and you will pay that the following month. Let's move to section 6 now. This has to do with late charges. As I said before, rent is due on the 1st. If we don't receive it within 3 calendar days, the late fee is 5% of the late rent. If a check is returned for non-sufficient funds, there is a fee for that as well. Parking, we're going to outline right here in section 7 where you are allowed to park, and please only park in those locations. Storage is restricted to anywhere indicated here. You cannot store anything on the exterior of the property. This includes patios, balconies, things like that. The only thing that should be on those areas is patio furniture and the like. In terms of utilities, we're going to indicate here which utilities we pay and which utilities you as a tenant are responsible for paying. By now, prior to move-in, we're going to expect you to complete a utilities checklist, which will indicate to us that you've set up services for the utilities you're responsible for. All right, let's go to page 3, condition of premises. This is indicating that the premises are in good, clean condition. And what we're going to do is we're going to physically walk through the premises with you. We're going to take photos, and we're going to indicate on a statement of condition how the property looks. And we expect at move out to get the property in the same condition, less normal wear and tear. Section 11 refers to maintenance use and reporting. We're going to go into this in more detail in a few seconds, but I did want to draw your attention to sections B and C, which talk about landscaping. We're going to indicate here whether the tenant or the housing provider, Monticello Property Management, is responsible for the watering and the maintenance and landscaping service. So if the boxes are checked tenant, that means it's your responsibility. If it says housing provider, it's our responsibility. Section G talks about periodic pest control services. Generally speaking, Monticello does not provide pest control services for routine bugs. That would be ants, spiders, things like that. But if you do have a problem with rodents or roaches, please let us know and we'll contact you to try to resolve that. 12 says you're familiar with the neighborhood that you're moving into. 13 addresses animals, and if there is a pet or service animal approved, there is a separate addendum for that, which we'll go over later. All of our residences are non-smoking. What that means is there's no smoking inside the unit or anywhere on the community grounds. Rules and regulations, they're a part of this agreement. We'll go over those separately momentarily. In section 16, if your unit is a condominium or planned unit development, we're going to check this box and give you some additional information about the HOA rules. Generally speaking, with the HOA, if they have a rule, we expect you to abide by it. If we get any notice saying that there is something that is amiss, we're going to let you know, and then we're going to expect you to correct that. Item 17 has to do with alterations and repairs. We want this to be your home, and if you wanted to do something like change a paint color or add something to the unit, we may be okay with that, but you need to get our approval in advance and in writing prior to doing it. So again, paint, any other modifications to the property, please let us know in advance in writing through an email, and we will let you know if it's approved or not. In terms of keys, we're going to provide you keys that are needed to occupy the residence, and we're going to identify all the keys that we provide you on your move-in statement of condition. We're going to expect to get all those keys, remotes, common area keys, etc. back when you vacate the premises. Item 19 has to do with entry to the residence. Basically, we have a right to come into the home as long as we provide you sufficient notice. At the end of your lease, when you're going to vacate and give us notice, this also applies. So we have the right to show your unit during the last month of your tenancy to prospective tenants. So again, we will never come into your unit without giving you written notice, but we do have the right to do so. We're going to slide down to section 22, which has to do with assignment and subletting. What this refers to is you cannot allow another person to either move in with you or to move in and replace you without receiving our written approval in advance before that happens. This also applies to Airbnb and other things of that nature. Okay, turning now to page 5. At the very top of the page, it says joint and individual obligations. What this means is if you are occupying the house with another financially responsible party, you are both jointly and individually responsible for the payment of rent. That means we don't distinguish between any of the individuals and their specific rental amount that's been agreed upon between the tenants. At the end of the day, we expect the full rent to be paid, and all of you would be responsible for it. We're going to give you possession of the unit on the date indicated here in section 24. And section 25 has to do with obligations upon vacating the premises. We go further into this in our addendum, so I'm going to hold off discussing that. Moving down to insurance, if we expect you to have renter's insurance or general liability insurance, that's going to be indicated here. One thing that you should be aware of is that the owner does have an insurance policy on the residence. This does not cover your personal property. So if you want to protect your personal property from damages or other issues, we strongly recommend renter's insurance. It's quite inexpensive. It provides you that peace of mind. Should anything happen at the property, fire, flood, etc., your policy will protect your personal property. The owner's policy will not. If at any time, going to the bottom here, section 32, if at any time you have concerns about how we are managing the property, you can reach out to us at our office address. We'll reach out to you at the premises. Okay, on page 6, I'm going to let you read most of that on your own, but item 35 talks about mediation. What that means is if we ever got into a dispute prior to going to court or involving attorneys, we're both agreeing that we would try to mediate that dispute with a third-party arbiter. If that couldn't happen, then, and we did go to court, the prevailing parties would get attorney's fees with a cap of $1,000 on those fees. There's a whole bunch of disclosures that will be coming shortly, so I'm not going to go over item 38. Going to the final page of the agreement before we get to our signatures, we have agency confirmation, which is most likely going to be Monticello in both fields, unless, of course, you came to us through a real estate broker, and then that broker will be listed here. Going down to section 47 lists the addendums that will be forthcoming, but there's also some blank spots with other terms. If there's anything specific related to your lease, this will be outlined here. We go into the final page, which is our signature page, and also if there is a guarantor on the lease, this is where they will sign the agreement. Okay, let's now go to the bed bugs addendum. What this is telling you is that we do not have any bed bugs, we're not aware of any bed bugs, and we don't want to have any bed bugs. They're very difficult to get rid of. The key thing here is don't buy furniture from or mattresses from locations that you are not familiar with. Don't pick anything up off of a street sale. Inevitably, that when we have had big bed bug problems in the past, it's been because of furnishings that were brought into the house that were not new. Okay, let's go to the flood disclosure. If your property is located in a flood hazard zone, we will have checked this box. It's basically telling you that in Southern California, there are a lot of locations that have the potential of a flooding, and we've indicated here if you are in one of those zones. Moving on now to the rent cap and just cause eviction addendum. This is an important document. What you're going to want to do is check section 3 and see if the notice of exemption is checked. If that box is checked, which is usually single family residents and condos, that means that your rent can change at the end of the lease term by any amount the owner chooses. If the box is not checked, it means that the property is subject to California's rent control limitations. And basically that law says that rent cannot go up any more than 5% plus the change in the consumer price index, capped at 10%. So it really depends on how the consumer price index is changing, but there is a limit year over year in the amount that the property owner can change the rent. Again, that's only if the notice of exemption box is not checked. The next document is the Fair Housing Anti-Discrimination Clause. It's basically confirming that Monticello Property Management does not discriminate in its housing choices. You can read that on your own. And then another very important document has to do with mold. We've not had mold in this property. We don't want to have mold in this property. And we want to do everything in our power to prevent it from developing. So what this is telling you about is what mold looks like, how to identify it. And if at any time you see an active leak in your home or anything that even begins to look like mold, we're going to contact you immediately, ask you if you've taken steps to try to clean the area, and then we'll get somebody in if it's something where there's an active leak and it needs immediate attention. But please pay attention to this. Ventilate your bathroom, ventilate your kitchens, make sure to clean on a regular basis, and this will be a non-issue. Okay, moving on now to our addendum, rules, regulations, and other terms. There's some very important information in here. Some of it we've already gone over. Let's start on page 1, occupants and roommates. We've already discussed the fact that the approved occupants are listed in the lease itself. Any replacement candidate must be approved in writing by the landlord. So no one can be invited to join you as a replacement or as an additional tenant without first being approved by Monticello Property Management. Whenever we give a notice to the one resident, it's as if we give notice to all of the residents. Security deposit, we talked about this before. It is not to be used as last month's rent. This outlines how and when we would make charges to the security deposit. Again, prior to your moving out, we're going to give you a very comprehensive list of things that we expect to be done prior to move out, including professional cleaning. As long as you adhere to those things, you'll get your deposit back. If we have to go in and pay for repairs or cleaning, then we have up to 21 days to return your deposit to you. When we get to the end of your lease term, your lease does not just end. It automatically becomes a month-to-month agreement. And either party may terminate that agreement with a 30-day written notice. So if you want to leave on the last day of your lease, 30 days prior to the expiration of your lease, you need to contact us by email or in writing indicating that you will be vacating. If you decide to stay, most of the time we're going to ask you to sign a lease extension. If the owner is unwilling to continue on a month-to-month basis, we will let you know, and both of us can make a decision as to what happens next if you're not willing to sign an extension. This is coming into tenants' obligations upon vacating the premises. What this is referring to is we expect you to pay all your rent due and return the premises free of damages, professionally clean, with all personal property and debris moved out. Now, you're going to see these bullet points here. This list will be emailed to you when you give us notice to vacate. So you're going to see this exact same list plus a cleaning checklist. We expect you to adhere to that list. If there are any questions, please contact us prior to moving out so that we can help ensure that you get 100% of your deposit back. Okay, moving on to early termination of lease. There is no buyout clause in this agreement. What that means is you have a contract for a period of time and you're obligated to pay rent throughout that contract. If something develops, you get a job transfer or something occurs where you need to vacate before the end of the lease, what we expect you to do is notify us of the situation, let us know that you'd like to vacate early, and then authorize us to market the residence for lease. You are responsible for rent until such time that we find a replacement tenant of the same financial quality of as yourself to take over. Once we do that, we will relieve you of your responsibility. Once that tenant takes possession, you no longer have to pay rent. There is an early termination fee to compensate us for the advanced marketing that we're going to have to do. And we'll work with you as much as we can. In the current rental environment, things typically do re-rent pretty quickly, so this should not be an issue, but you need to be aware when you sign a lease contract, it is a contract, and you are obligated to that contract until we achieve what I just outlined. Let's move now to maintenance and repairs. If you have a refrigerator or a washer and dryer, we may have indicated that those items are as is. That means that the owner is not obligated to repair or replace those items. However, that doesn't mean you can just take them out without telling us. So if one of those items fails and you decide you're going to replace it, please contact us. We do want to run that by the owner before any appliance any as-is appliance is replaced. Okay, maintenance requests. We have two types of maintenance requests. There is an emergency maintenance request, and then there are routine maintenance requests. An emergency maintenance request in our mind is free-flowing water, fire, a main sewer line backup that is, the backup is actually getting onto the floor of your unit. If you smell gas, or if you have no heat and we are in a below freezing environment, which is pretty unusual in California. Under those circumstances, what we want you to do is call our 24/7 call center at 714-777-0524. They will contact our staff no matter the time. But it is very important that this is an emergency call. So please follow the listed items here when you're submitting an emergency request. If your maintenance request is not an emergency, a routine request, outlet is out, a light isn't working, the toilet's acting funny, we ask you to submit your maintenance request through the online portal. There you'll find a tab that says maintenance. You click on it and you'll be able to provide a detailed description of what the problem is. If there are multiple issues, please provide them all in one service request. You'll have an opportunity to add some photographs. There'll be a checklist of questions that you can answer. And once you hit submit, somebody on the Monticello staff will receive that request immediately. You're going to either hear from us or our service vendor, usually within the same day. We don't have responses on Sunday unless it's an emergency, but typically Monday through Saturday during normal business hours, you should hear from somebody promptly to schedule a service time to come out and take care of the issue. Coming up next is what we expect you to check before submitting a service request. So there may be no water. Well, we'll ask you to check the pilot light. No power, check the circuit breakers or see if there's GFCI outlets in the kitchen or the bathrooms. Is the sink or tub not draining? Try to plunge it. Garbage disposal not working? There's a reset button underneath that you can crank. Smoke detector beeping? Check on the batteries. So when you submit a maintenance request that may have a component that you could look into, we may call you and ask you to take a look at that. Plumbing backups, we will come out for plumbing backups, but if we determine that the cause of the backup was related to you or the resident's use, we may give you a warning, or if this has happened before or it was a pretty egregious issue, then we may pass that plumbing charge through to you. All tenants have some general cleaning responsibilities. We expect that throughout your tenancy that you're going to keep the house properly clean and orderly so that when you move out, things don't develop that are impossible or difficult to clean. So this includes the kitchen and the bathrooms, as outlined here, the carpets and flooring. We expect the carpets to be cleaned at least once a year. If you don't clean them throughout your tenancy, that could lead to wear and tear above and beyond normal, and that would either require us to clean and or replace them at your move out. There are tenant replacement responsibilities. These are things that we expect you to do throughout the term of your tenancy. Smoke detector battery is out, we ask you to replace it. We ask you at least twice a year to replace the furnace and AC filters. Light bulbs go out, that's something for you to take care of. Broken glass doors or frames or missing screens, handles, or locks that are a result of your use, we're going to expect you to take care of that. If blind slats are ripped or torn down, that again is a tenant responsibility. And lastly, keys. We are not a locksmith, so if you lose or misplace your keys, you're going to have to come to the office to secure a replacement key. We do not send locksmiths out to your residence. There are landlord approval items, and I talked about this previously. Basically, if you want to make some physical changes to the residence, you need to contact us in advance and get our approval in writing before doing so. I've already talked about landscaping. The most important thing here is if you are listed as the responsible party for watering, we're going to expect you to adhere to a reasonable watering schedule such that the lawn, the bushes, and the plants stay healthy, of course within any drought restrictions that may exist. Let's see, we talked about pest control services, and here's a list of routine pests that we're not going to be responsible for. Again, if you have any issues with roaches or rodents, contact us and we'll be happy to help. Okay, use of the premises, particularly in places where you have a shared residence, you're in a condo, an apartment, something where there's other residents around you. We ask you to keep things quiet between the hours of 10 o'clock at night and 8 o'clock in the morning. Generally speaking, be a good neighbor. Let's see. Criminal activity, we're stating here that you and all the residents will not engage in any activity that would be considered a criminal activity. You're not allowed to lease your house out on a short-term basis. So if you're going on vacation, you can't allow somebody to move in and through Airbnb or any of those type of services. If a community amenity is not available or is shut down, i.e. a pool, spa, gym, playground, etc., Monticello is not responsible for that, and there will not result in a rental concession or anything of that nature. If there are laundry facilities on site, we ask that, again, similar to the quiet hours, that the laundry room should not be used between after the hours of 10 p.m. and before 8 a.m. In terms of, okay, we've outlined your parking in the lease agreement. What you need to be aware of is that parking is subject to city and HOA use restrictions. You're responsible for any permits, stickers, transponders that would be required by a city or an HOA. And we're reminding you not to park in red zones, fire zones, or in front of any other person's parking spots or in their parking spots to avoid having your vehicle towed. In terms of vehicle maintenance, we do not allow vehicle maintenance on the premises. That would be brake work, oil or fluid changes, engine repairs. None of those things can happen on the premises. Storage, we've already talked about, should be all inside the unit, nothing visible on the exterior of the property. If we've provided you with a storage closet or locker, that's going to be outlined here in the agreement. You're not allowed to put anything in the exterior of your windows, so no placards, no lights, no decorations of any kind. Going to health and safety, there's a document here called the Prop 65 disclosure, which is coming up, which basically indicates any type of building materials that could have been used on the premises that may be known by the state of California to either cause cancer, birth defects, or reproductive issues. This is a required document that we'll be sharing momentarily. Lead-based paint and asbestos. Unless we've indicated here, we are not aware of any lead-based paint or asbestos in the property, but at the same time, we haven't necessarily tested the property for that. Any building built prior to 1978 could have one or more of these substances. Again, if we're aware of it, we will have checked one of the boxes below. We talk about mold a lot. We do not want to have mold. We haven't had mold. And to avoid mold, it's very important that we keep areas with water use ventilated, so that's your bathroom and kitchens, cleaned and wiped down on a regular basis using a mold and mildew product. If you take hot showers and leave the windows closed, don't run the fan, you will eventually get mold, especially if you're not cleaning. So we ask you to do that. We ask you to keep an eye on the areas that have water use. If you see anything that even remotely looks like mold, please let us know right away so that we can come out and address it immediately. You're not allowed to keep any hazardous materials on the presence. That's like gasoline, solvents, combustibles, things like that. I've already talked about smoking. There's no smoking on the premises or in the unit. HOAs may have a separate rule on that, but this is specific to this property owner. Safety, we do not advertise any of our properties as secure premises. There may be secured access, but we do not provide security services at any of our locations. Per California law, we have a Megan's Law disclosure which tells you can look up if there are sex offenders in the area around your residence. Smoke detectors, key takeaway here is that you are responsible for regular testing of your smoke and CO detectors to make sure that they're functioning. If they're not functioning, please replace the battery. We recommend that at least twice a year that you do those inspections and keep those batteries fresh. Please make sure that all your trash gets from your unit into the proper receptacles. If you're a single-family home, make sure your trash cans get out and put back in when they're supposed to. And if you're in a multifamily residence, make sure the trash gets from your house properly to the dumpsters or a location. Moving on, landlord and tenant disclosures. The first item says that we have presented you via pre-recorded online video presentation the lease terms. In terms of renter's insurance, we've discussed this before. Unless indicated elsewhere in this lease, we do not require it for this residence. However, if you want to protect your personal property and protect yourselves, we strongly recommend that you get renter's insurance. It's very low cost and it covers you and your personal property. Ownership disclosure, we're indicating to you that Monticello is listed as the landlord, but we are not the ownership entity unless it's indicated within this agreement. We've already talked about fair housing, and Monticello reserves the right to modify these rules and regulations. If we did that, it would be in writing to you and to all the occupants of the premises. Okay, next up is the Prop 65 warning. Again, this is just a disclosure of any materials that could have been used in the building of the residence that may be known to the state of California to contain cancer-causing agents or other issues. So please review that on your own. If your residence has a pool or spa, we will have that addendum attached to your lease. And in essence, it's saying that you're going to be using the pool and spa at your own risk, that if there is no safety fence, we are acknowledging that, and also that anybody who utilizes the pool should be pool safe. In this agreement, you're holding Monticello and the property owner harmless for any injury sustained by you, any guest, for the use of the pool or spa. The rest of it is pretty self-explanatory. If you have an approved pet or service animal, that addendum will be included on your lease as well. And in essence, that's covering your responsibility to keep the pet from disturbing other residents in any way, shape, or form, keep them from barking, and from damaging the premises. We acknowledge there that your security deposit can be used for pet or animal damages, and we indicate whether there is an additional pet deposit or pet rent for that animal. What you should know is that this pet addendum is specific to the animal that was approved. You cannot add additional animals without first receiving our written approval. And this includes animals that are just visiting for the day. If we have a no pet policy, that the only pets that are permitted on the premises are those that have been approved in writing through the pet addendum. This concludes my review of the rental agreement with you. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to me or your portfolio manager, and they'll be happy to answer any of those questions. If everything's in order, let us know, and we will send you an electronic version of this agreement to eSign. It's pretty simple. All you do is log in, and then it will walk you through the agreement and show you where you need to initial and sign. Once that's complete, we will countersign the agreement, and then you are set. Thank you for listening to this lease review. Congratulations on your new home. We hope you stay with us a long time. Super happy to have you. And if you have any issues when you move in, just please feel to let us know. We want to get you off on the right foot in your new home. Thanks and take care.